Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with one of our favorite regular guests now on GoBlackKnights.com, Army Defensive Coordinator, Coach Nate Woody. Coach Woody, thanks for joining us today. Go Black Knights is doing a special segment on Army's linebackers. You know, Army is sort of becoming a linebacker U, so to speak of. Don't know if we're, with Penn State yet in that arena, but the last 5 years, really the last 10 years since Coach Monken's been at West Point, but specifically in your tenure, the last 4 seasons, Army's produced some great linebackers. So just wanted to talk a little bit about that. What is it, do you think, with the linebacker position specifically in your defense at Army that produces such talented players? They develop really well. When they start, they might be kind of an unknown quantity like an Andre Carter or a John Radigan, but then they end up in the NFL.
I think one thing is each linebacker position has a different skill set required. Um, at any point in football, from a roster standpoint, you want to get guys that process things quickly and they can trigger fast. And the guy that lines up as an outside linebacker for us on the line of scrimmage, I mean, he's a guy that's got to have a great get off and have some pass rush moves. The guy that's back there at the inside linebacker spot, he's got a lot of things happening in front of him, and he's got to have a little bit of help up front as far as the defensive lineman. But those guys have got to be able to just process schemes and then fit and be physical when they do fit. When they can trigger quick and get where they need to be, we'll stay on schedule as a defense, and then. And then the guys out to the field are going to have a skill set that is more inclined to cover than anything else. And if they can give us that nickel type of player out there to the field that can give us more or better, tighter coverage, and still be able to come off the edge with some blitz and walk up on the line of scrimmage when teams are going to a heavier personnel grouping, then of course you're going to be more successful defensively. So I guess being here for me is I'm the benefactor of some really good football players, and we put 4 linebackers out there every game, and it's just a little bit easier for me to find the guys that can run around and process it and play hard and play fast at the linebacker spot and stand up for us than to find the extra big guy, to put his hand down like a 4-3. So that's the way I've been doing it for probably since 1996, and it's worked well for us.
So kind of based on that and the different skill sets you mentioned at each position that kind of each unique linebacker position requires in your scheme, Coach Woody, is there a certain type of athlete that you and the staff look to recruit for the linebacker position? A couple of the kids at the Apache position who ended up becoming really successful players, like a Jimmy Charlo or a Malcolm Morrison, they have played D-back or a different position in high school. Kind of what specifically do y'all look for as you're going through the recruiting process?
I guess over the years I've been part of some defenses where if you move guys, from the secondary down to the linebacker core, they have a vision and they have a speed that enables them to play, faster. So if we're recruiting and we see a free safety that with a skill set that where he could play a half technique or a deep middle third technique, or he can drop down and help us in the box, with some of our defenses. That correlates to that Apache position as well, from a coverage standpoint, and being able to recognize routes and at times step into the box and play that. So we're always looking at free safeties that might be just a little bit bigger, that one day could step up there and play that Apache position. But their skill set also goes from a free safety to a will linebacker for us, a guy that can step down into the box, read his gap responsibility, read the scheme, but also be able to drop back in coverage and possibly carry a number two receiver running down the field deep. So we've been able to move Malcolm Morrison from a corner. I think he was recruited as a corner and played Apache for us. That was and did a great job, outstanding. And part of his skill set was he was probably one of the quickest guys that we had on the team, for 10 to 20 yards. So from a coverage standpoint, he was outstanding. He could wall carry and he could blitz off of the edge. Jimmy Charlo was recruited as a free safety, and for some of those same qualities that I mentioned earlier, was able to make that move for us and still wall carry a vertical threat and be able to come off the edge and get pressure on a quarterback or step into the box and play a gap responsibility for us. So I think Leo Lowen was another free safety that we recruited that had a toughness to him, and really sharp guy, could see the schemes and fit where he needed to fit, and still be able to carry a receiver going down the field. So he stepped in at that will linebacker spot for us and did a tremendous job, especially the last 4 games, just lights out, for us, and really helped us finish strong this past season. And then I guess I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but when I go back and I look at John Radigan, Radigan was a tremendous athlete, but when I got here, we were going through some conditioning drills, and he just stood out. He was a guy that was ready to sit down and make his mark, and just he really studied hard as far as his responsibilities. He was able to see the schemes, and he was fast enough to make plays that landed him a job in the NFL. So he was a tremendous talent, and we're fortunate to get him at the right time. But maybe the one of the best that I saw processing the schemes and fitting his gap responsibility and fending off blocks and making tackles was Eric Smith. That guy was anything and everything I could ever ask for in a linebacker, and just did a tremendous job for us in playing the option or playing power football, or at times he got better and better at his pass drops as well, and breaking on the ball and being a presence in his own coverage. So all those guys did a tremendous job for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great, Coach Woody, because you kind of, I was going to go through some of those guys, so I appreciate you kind of detailing some of that for the fans. That was great. You talked about some of the skill sets, like for the Apache and the dog and the will and the Mike, and kind of how they have to differ a little bit. Against a traditional offense, the Apache will play kind of like a nickel type scheme, and
Yeah.
like you said, the dog has to be really good with pass rush. How does obviously your defenses and the linebackers in particular? You mentioned Leo Lowen; he had an amazing last 4 games last year, specifically. If we're gonna kind of drill down even more against the other 2 academies. How do the responsibilities change for those 4 positions when you're defending the option?
I think the hardest thing for defending the option is the 2 inside linebackers in the box, because whenever you put 3 backs in the backfield, there's if you're trying to read flow out of the backfield, there's a lot of misdirection that can happen. There's a lot of things that can happen on any one play. So offensively, if you're utilizing the option, you could get a downhill play out of the fullback. You can get an off tackle play with the quarterback keeping it, and you can get a pitch out of it. You also can get a play action out of it. So everything that you could ever ask for you get out of that three-back scheme. So those guys processing that stuff, it's coming down fast, and they've got to be able to see, is this going to be a downhill play, or is this a misdirection play? Have I got to be able to see a guard that pulls back in the other direction, or is it one of those other backs that goes in the other direction? So in my opinion, defending the option, those two inside linebackers are the most important, parts of the puzzle. Yeah, the back end, the secondary has a tremendous responsibilities in defending the perimeter and helping those linebackers, um, and also defending the pass. But those inside linebackers have blocks coming at them from every direction. And recently there's been some rule changes that have helped them, where they don't have to fend off the any kind of block below the waist, coming from outside in. And that's helpful to us, but it's still a very difficult offense to defend for those inside linebackers. So you got to be able to blitz it, you got to be able to read it, and you got to be able to fit your part when the pass comes. And we've had some guys that have really stepped up and can process things quickly enough to make us pretty good in the option defense.
Absolutely. So, Coach Woody, now we're just going to kind of go through a little bit of rapid fire, just talk about your different linebacking cores that you've had there. You've already mentioned some of the skill sets and what made some of those players special, but I'm just going to kind of throw out a year group and some names to you. And if there's anybody I missed that you want to highlight, or anything you want to go into more depth on any of these guys, go ahead. You started in 2020, and probably the biggest surprise was John Radigan, just because, like you said, you had the opportunity to see him in practice and conditioning drills and see what a great athlete he was. The fan base really didn't know about Radigan prior to the 2020 season because he was behind another NFL linebacker, Cole Christensen. You had Radigan, you had Eric Smith starting at the other inside backer. And then we talked a little bit about Malcolm Morrison, who actually got some looks from the Raiders and potentially would have made the team if he didn't opt to go into the Army. And Andre Carter, of course, who is with the Minnesota Vikings. So talk a little bit about that crew. They were clearly very successful. Team had a 9-3 season, almost upset West Virginia in the bowl game, which Radigan couldn't play that game because of COVID. I remember that. So talk a little bit about the 2020 team.
Yeah, I think that the 2020 team, I saw early on that we were probably going to be pretty good, just from some of the guys in some walkthroughs or things like that before COVID hit. You can see we had the nucleus of a team that could line up and be pretty good. The one guy that you just didn't know for sure until the season started was Radigan. I mean, he could run around. He was a good sized linebacker that could run, but sometimes stepping into the box and diagnosing the play was is what set some guys back. But he just did a tremendous job of relating to what we were trying to do from a scheme standpoint and understanding where his fit in the defense was, and he could do it fast. So when you put him at that will linebacker for us, he could run some stuff down from the boundary all the way to the field. And when you get a fast one at that position, you can play a lot of different coverages, and you can give him some responsibilities and to where you don't have to be how can I say it, as rigid in your end run force. He could go run stuff down out on the perimeter. So that made us better.
That's
and
huge.
and
Yeah.
just a sure tackler. Very good tackler. Played with his pads out, and whenever he got his hands on the ball, he could take it back for a good long run. Intercepted a ball, I think maybe in the first ball against Middle Tennessee. I think he returned
Yeah.
that for a touchdown. And
Yep.
then later on against I believe it was maybe Louisiana Monroe. he intercepted another one and returned it almost for a touchdown, but put us in a scoring position. So really good athlete that did a tremendous job of reading the scheme, and we just hadn't seen that yet, but he proved he could do it and do it well. Um, when you get into Eric Smith, as I said before, that was a guy that studied as hard or as good as any linebacker I've ever been around. I mean, just did a tremendous job of knowing what the most important thing was for him to fit, and you could always count on him being where he needed to be and do it with a toughness. I think he was a guy that I don't know that I ever saw a single practice that he missed. From an injury standpoint, he never had an injury for us. As long as I was here, until after the season. I think it had either a leg or back injury that probably kept him out of the NFL. And if he hadn't gotten that injury, there's no doubt in my mind that he probably would have still be playing today. And then you get into Andre Carter. Andre Andre was a little bit uh, heavy. When I first got here in 20, he had put on a lot of weight, but it wasn't good weight because we had sent him home and we didn't have access to him as far as the weight room and all, and it just he put on a lot of weight, but it just wasn't necessarily the right kind of weight, but you could see him going through some drills where he just had a, a, a flexibility to where he was able to change direction on pass rush, and he had that long reach, and he had a great get off. So you knew he was going to be really good. And maybe one of the best things about him was his ability to cover into the boundary. He just could cover so much ground and had great hands. So intercepted a pass against Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern.
That,
Yep. That was a huge play.
yeah, but it put us in a little bit of predicament because he could cover really well, but you wanted him to rush the passer, so
Right.
you felt bad about dropping him in coverage because he could go get to the quarterback. So there was a conflict there, a good one, but
That's a good problem to have. Yeah.
yeah, a conflict nevertheless. So when he dropped a little bit of that weight and started adding on good weight, afterwards, he was tremendous at making an offensive tackle uncomfortable. So we started doing things differently defensively just to allow him and his skill set to flourish, and it helped us tremendously defensively to get him up the field to the quarterback. And that's not what we had always done with that position, but it was the right thing to do with him. So um, and then we get into back to the field, the cover spot. There's probably not a more important position on the field for us. When we're trying to transition from the option world to the gun, and how teams spread it out and attack you all over the field. That Apache position is incredibly important to us. So he's got to have a skill set that relates to ability to cover, or step down into the box and be a third linebacker or fourth linebacker. And yeah, that's not always easy to do. That's not easy to find. But we've been fortunate that Malcolm Morrison and Jimmy Charlo have had the skill set that we need to get them to contribute so heavily to our defense, and also that it opens some eyes out there from an NFL standpoint, and those opportunities for them are there. Absolutely.
And then we go to 2021, coach, and what arguably may be the best linebacking core under your reign. I'm not going to ask you to pick one, but if you pulled the fans, really solid linebacking core. Leo Lowen enters the mix with Radigan's graduation, and you return Andre Carter, Malcolm Morrison, and Eric Smith. Probably the highlight of the year for that crew was both Morrison and Smith came up huge in the bowl game against Missouri and made a lot of big key plays. So talk a little bit to what Leo Lowen added to that group in 2021, and if you want to highlight any of the big moments that you can remember from that team.
Yeah, I thought Leo came and talked to me a little bit about moving to a linebacker position, and it had been something that I had been thinking about, and the fact that he came into my office to discuss making the move made it a little bit easier. So he moved to the position, but you don't just step into that position and just flourish, day one. So it took a lot of work, for him to see, when to fit downhill, when he had to go east and west, and from a coverage standpoint, what was more important, that play action, with that back coming downhill, or was it, from a coverage standpoint. So uh, he worked hard during the course of the season and ultimately stepped into that spot and contributed well for us. Early on we had a little bit of musical chairs as far as how we were playing, who we were playing at that position, and Leo came in and did a nice job for us. But one of the guys that we played often and played well for us in the option game was a guy named Kamante Yao. And
Mm-hmm.
Kamante stepped in
Yep.
and just saw the option game really well. It just came incredibly natural to him. So against Air Force and Navy, he was the guy that played for us in that position. And then Leo was a little bit better from a standpoint of covering his space, and was able to give us, better productivity against the gun teams that you normally see the spread offense out of. And then Eric Smith just saw things so fast. Just it is you always talk about the guy, how well does he trigger? And what you're talking about is the time it takes to see your gap responsibility, your responsibility within the scheme of the defense, and do you go take that, or do you go pursue the football somewhere else? And he was right so many times that he
Mm-hmm.
just graded through the roof, every time he lined up and played.
Mm-hmm.
And just I can't say enough great things about Eric. Just a tremendous job. So that 21 linebacker core with also with Malcolm out there at the
Yeah.
Apache position. You just
Yeah.
that's a tough technique that we asked those guys to play in the passing game, and he just really made it easy for us to play, you know, uh, with one high safety at times. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And I forgot to mention that was the year Andre Carter was second in the nation in sacks as well. So
yeah, that makes your defense a whole lot better.
yeah,
I think I'd always
definitely.
thought this. I think when you get sacks, that's outstanding. That's great. But also the times when you're not getting sacks, if you're affecting the quarterback, then your defense
Yep.
is doing well. And I think Andre had, if not the highest, uh, success rate, rushing the passer, it was at least in the top two or three. And so
Right.
all the times that he was getting sacks, he got a lot of you know, notoriety, and people were understanding, hey man, he's doing something. But it was also those times where he didn't get the sack that he was doing a lot for our defense as well, because if you get the quarterback off the mark, that ball is not it's not thrown on time, or it's not thrown the right place, then your defense is successful. You stay on schedule as far as your down and distance that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I recall, especially on into the 22 season with him when he was much more of a known quantity, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like he started to draw a lot more double teams as well, that may have freed up some guys defensively.
Yeah, we probably tried to rush a little bit away from him sometimes, and And I think he had an injury or two that may have kept him out of some ball games and things like that. But he was a tough guy and battled through some of those injuries and just you know sometimes he was out there playing and not at 100%. Let me say that.
Yep, that was evident, I think. In 2022, Jimmy Charlo really started to get a significant amount of playing time. As you mentioned, he came down from D-back, and now of course he's been so successful the last 2 years that he's still with the New York Jets. So really good sign there. We talked a little bit about Jimmy. You've already kind of hit on some of his skill sets, but if you want to elaborate some more, that's great. And then this past year, we added kind of a number of new players to the mix. Caleb Fortner, who had a huge game against Navy, probably the MVP of the game with the strip sack for a touchdown, as well as the big play towards the end there on the 2 yard line. And then Jackson Powell entered the mix at the dog position this past year.
Yeah, I'll hit on Jimmy again. Making that move from free safety to the Apache position wasn't an easy one for him. Uh, just going through the learning curve and the different angles of the game out there was something that he had to fight through, and he worked he worked very hard at understanding assignment and then how to use his alignment and position, very well to be successful. There was a lot of coaches on the opposing teams that came back and told me, he's just he was one of the best guys, on our defense, but not only one of the best athletes, he was one of the best at being able to use his alignment, to put indecision in the quarterback's minds. So just made a tremendous improvement in understanding his responsibility to the defense and just continue to make improvement every year. So much to the point to where hopefully he's got a good long career with with the NFL. So I guess as we get into this past season, the other guys that stepped up for us, Jackson Powell was a highly recruited outside linebacker for us. He played dog position and he's not. If you put him beside Andre Carter, you couldn't get two guys that look more different.
Right.
Um, but the skill set that JP had was he was fundamentally sound in everything that he did. He just great with his hands at getting the offensive lineman's hands off of him and still being able to turn the edge and get to the quarterback. He made some big sacks for us. Maybe one of the first ones that I remember. We thought about blitzing him a little bit more in the UTSA game, but we decided to hold it until later in the ball game. And when we did call it, he came through for us on a third down and helped us win that ball game. And that was a really good opponent, I thought. Good very good offensive unit there. So also he came back and got a huge sack in the Navy game, where he came off the edge and got us into a favorable down and distance on in the second half against those guys. So made a big play against the Air Force, in the backfield on a fourth down play down in a red zone. So just week after week, he was so steady and everything that he did that I mean, I'm going to miss the heck out of him. Just a tremendous football player for us, and maybe didn't have as many sacks as you saw from Andre, but just was very steady and handling a tight end and his gap responsibility and still getting pressure on the quarterback at opportune times. You move over to back to the inside linebacker position last year, and Caleb Fortner was working in some during the early part of the season, and when Spencer Jones went down with injury, that Caleb really stepped up and took the position. He still went through a learning curve over the course of the season, but he you could see him playing his best ball at the end of the season, and it sure showed in that Navy game. Just made a lot of tackles and big plays, especially on the last drive where he had some coverage and he had to make some tackles, one-on-one against pretty good athlete, and he did it. And hats off to him. He's yeah, maybe one of the biggest parts of winning that ball game. But we expect a lot of great things out of him. But I'll be honest with you. I think that inside linebacker crew for us may be one of the strongest points that we've got from a depth standpoint. Going into this season, you look at him at the Mike linebacker, and you say, man, he's got Caleb's got a bright future, but so does Brett Drina. Brett Drina has really stepped up and gotten better at processing the schemes and finishing and fitting where he needs to fit. And then Noah Nixon is another guy that's going to be a really good football player for us as an inside linebacker. He's stepped up and he's going eventually he's going to be one of the best that's come through here as well. And Andon Thomas has stepped up at the will linebacker spot and just done a tremendous job during the spring. And we thought he was going to be really good a year ago. He had an ankle injury that kept bothering him, throughout the season. So once he got healthy, we felt like he was going to be a guy that really paid dividends for our defense, and he has. So really like what he's doing. Adam Cass is another guy that used to play free safety for us, that is stepping in and it's going to be a really good football player for us. So our two deep, we can rotate easily at that position and keep going pretty good. And then Baylor Newsome's another guy that stepped up and showed some really good things during the spring. So that inside linebacker position is what I feel pretty deep and should be position that we look on as a strength going into this next season.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of depth for sure. So last question for you, Coach Woody. You mentioned multiple times throughout the interview how critical and difficult the Apache position is in your defense, and having to replace Jimmy Charlo. Who do you like at the Apache position going into the season this year?
Well, we've worked a lot of guys at that position, and a lot of them have shown promise. Chance Keith was the backup to Jimmy Charlo last year, and stepped in and did some really good things at that position, and shown that we can count on him. Josiah Banks is another one that we feel like has a lot of potential. We're just looking for the consistency, to pick up a little bit for him, and he'd be another one that you could count on when as we get a little bit more consistent. With him. Hamilton Baker is a guy that we moved over to that position because he's got a lot of speed. He's a guy that has bounced around a little bit from safety to inside linebacker, now to outside linebacker. So he's still getting used to the position, but maybe a guy that could help us down the road. And then we got some guys that we always move around and get a feel for, in a pinch, could you play Casey Larkin at that position at Apache, or do you leave him at the safety position? And so they had a little bit of injuries during the spring, so we didn't get as many looks from him at the Apache position as we wanted, but we'll see how he does in the off season and see which position is best for him, whether it's the safety or the Apache. So
makes sense. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Coach Woody. We really appreciate it. We know you're always super busy. We know you have meetings all afternoon, so we appreciate you taking some time out to talk to us. Thanks, and best of success the rest of the summer and as you head into fall camp. And go Army, beat